Hello and welcome back to CDK Live. I'm Barb Edson and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for CDK Global. Incredibly excited to have Jason Stein with us, the president of motormindz, and also he hosts his own radio show on Sirius XM, Cars and Culture, 4 times a week, so make sure to catch him there as well. So incredibly happy to have you with us, Jason.
Great to be with you, Barb. Thank you. What a great setup. This is like Good Morning America or the Today Show or something. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You guys have taken over here.
So great to be with people, isn't it?
It is great to be with people. Yeah, it's kind of like old homecoming week or old home week for a lot of folks.
Great.
Everybody having been gone and now coming back together. I think it started on Wednesday, really, with planes arriving and events occurring. And NADA really told me that we were looking at 18,000 folks who were attending, which by convention show standards is on the high end. Most conventions have not returned to the normalcy that they had from 2 years ago. NADA has, which is really interesting, and it's been great to see. And I hosted an EV super session on Thursday afternoon. There were 900 people in the room.
That's awesome.
I mean, that was crazy, right? It's wonderful to see.
Well, back together in person, but you've actually had a lot of change as well. And so, I mean, I know everybody in the automotive industry knows you, but you're actually up to some new and exciting stuff. So let's share that with our audience.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 of them. So the first thing is I'm the president of motormindz for the last 6 months and really helping that team, which is almost a decade old, work with OEMs and suppliers, various parts of the industry, retail, just to find solutions that fit. And there are more than 100 executives who work within motormindz and who have sat in the C-level seats and who have the expertise. And it's great to share my own knowledge from the other side of the table. I was asking the questions more than anything else, right? But
you to be on the hot spot today.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was always asking the questions, and now I can ask different questions, which is how can we help you? So that's one piece of it, and the other side of it is Sirius XM, which we're now 40 episodes in. I'm proud to say, and a very unique space in that there's nothing that really exists on the radio waves, if you will, satellite radio, as well as the podcast space that looks at automotive and the passion for automotive and the culture behind all of that. So some examples, I've had Roger Penske as a guest. This week was Guy Berryman, who's the bass player for Coldplay. So kind of all facets, actors, musicians, athletes, and we're talking culture, we're talking passion for cars and automotive in general.
Awesome, yes, great show, so make sure to catch it. So one of the things with all of our dealers here in the audience, one of the things we're passionate about at CDK is really what's changing for dealers and what's happening sort of in the marketplace as far as their longevity and the things that we as CDK can do to help them. We think dealers are going to be the dominant channel for distribution of cars for the long term, but would love to hear your perspective on that.
I mean, a lot of buzz in the marketplace around those who don't want to work with dealers and a lot of hype and hysteria around all of it. In my mind, it's going to come down to a couple of things. Number one, of course, the EV propulsion landscape is changing. We're just changing the propulsion system. We're going from gas, right, to electric, okay? So the world's not necessarily blowing up, but the powertrain is different. The propulsion system's different. I know there are others who've been at the front of that line, Tesla being one, and sure, they've been able to carve out an impressive niche without having any manufacturing experience. But here's the thing. Everybody else is coming now, Barb.
Right.
So you have 100 models coming in the next 36 months that will be the same propulsion system. Oh, but by the way, there's a franchise network that's behind that.
Right.
Sales, service, aftermarket. That's the first thing. The second thing is, look, given the price of vehicles these days, which at last count was around $46,000, an incredible record high for various reasons. Chip shortages, plus the amount of technology that's going into these vehicles. There's a piece of the population that's still going to need to service and fix their existing internal combustion engine vehicles because affordability has become a huge issue. So that brings dealers to the forefront in terms of just saying, okay, well, how can we maintain what you have? How can we upgrade what you have? And for a large percentage of the population, it's going to be hanging on to the vehicle that they've had for a long time. So I think dealers are in it for the long haul, and do not discount the entrepreneurial nature of dealers who, when faced with a challenge, will come back roaring.
Absolutely. Actually, and we really feel like they're the strategic differentiator, right?
Yeah.
For these OEMs that have these distribution channels, like they're touching it, that consumer wants that connected experience. It's like buying a house nowadays, buying a car.
Yeah,
I mean, it's much more like buying a house than buying a pair of shoes. So you want to touch it, you want to feel it, you want to have that local sort of bond and experience.
Tipping point came during COVID, which was the amount of monumental change that occurred over the last 2 years at the consumer level for consumers to become, number one, more smarter, but number two, to establish a stronger connection with their dealer network, because where are you going to get a car now? It's all build to order. Well, that's a relationship with your local dealer. So I think dealers have become very innovative. They have found a place that perhaps, it did require a seismic shift, globally, frankly, in order to occur. But in terms of technology, in terms of connecting with the consumer, far and away better than they ever were before.
Well, and you deal with dealers every day, right? And you talk to the OEMs, et cetera, and having that connective tissue that needs to be built there. Like, what are some of those conversations? We'd love to kind of be a fly on the wall and hear, like, when you're talking to an OEM, what are they telling you? When you're talking to dealers, what are they talking about? And are they working well together and driving that connection for the better of the consumer?
Well, you can't go to an NADA without hearing conflict between dealers and automakers. That's true, right? We just wouldn't be an NADA without it. So, of course, and there's been a lot talked about in the last few weeks, especially in terms of what the distribution channel costs an automaker. So it might sound like 08 and 09 all over again, although not that drastic, obviously. But there is a feeling that there needs to be a partnership that's forged between the two groups, and I think you see some very progressive automakers who are doing that. I had the chance to interview Scott Keogh on Thursday, and their transformation to the EV space that is full on completely going down that path. And what Scott said to a room full of dealers is, look, we're going to work with you. We're going to try to get to the next stage of evolution here in terms of the products that will be on your lot, but we're going to work with you in terms of infrastructure as well.
Great.
So it becomes a sticky point with the consumer. What does infrastructure look like? What are the capabilities? How am I better suited to work with the technology of the future? There's an example of an automaker that's going to do that. You've seen Cadillac come out with similar things with their dealer body. They've got to work together. I know it's not always harmonious, but they have to work together. Don Flo, an influential dealer in North Carolina, has almost every brand in existence, sits on many dealer councils, says, look, we're probably not going to agree, but we're going to sit down and talk. And I think that that's probably what NADA is for, is to sit down and figure out where they can go in the path together now that everybody has moved through the last 2 years.
That's great. So one of the studies we talked about with the dealers and OEMs here was a trendsetter study yesterday, and we were kind of leaning into those dealers, that are basically leaning in and they're embracing that change. And so we talked about some of the things we saw successful dealers doing, but I would love to get your perspective on that. And I think one of them is leaning into that change and embracing that relationship with OEMs. What are some of the other things those successful dealers do?
I think of John Melashenko of Germain in Ohio with some 30 brands, and the fact that they've remade their entire online portal geared toward what's coming in the EV space. How to buy an EV, what to buy, what you should consider, the pros and cons of EV ownership, charging stations, where are they, how far can I drive? But it's getting everybody within the store and the stores on the same page relative to that change that's going to occur. He's just one example. Jeremy Beaver of DGDG out in San Jose.
Right? Yep, on my neighborhood.
Your area, right, you're right, your neck of the woods. Very progressive, looking at ways to connect with the consumer in a very different way than they have before, but also trying to build some of the bridge with their automotive partners to make sure that at the retail level that everybody understands what's coming, what the allocation can be, how they sell it, what tools there are to sell. So I think in general, there are very innovative dealers out there who are doing things that probably they wouldn't have even considered 5 years ago. Keith McCluskey's the General Motors dealer chairman. He's in Cincinnati, Ohio. He is transforming a 70,000 square foot facility into an EV transportation hub, if you will. Liza Borches Carter Myers doing the same thing, becoming a transportation hub for the customer, basically. You can charge there, you can have your vehicle serviced, obviously, and you're always going to have a relationship with the dealer moving forward.
That's great. And service, we've talked a lot about with dealers, and dealers here have told us service is such a huge profit center for them, and it will be going. I think there's confusion on the EV, like, oh, the service revenue is going to go down. Talk a bit about that. No. We don't believe that. So.
No, not at all. In fact, We Predict, which is an organization out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, that looks at service over the course of the last few years as EVs have become more mainstream, looked at the service records and basically said, you know what, there's going to be more service work, because you're still going to have your tires and your wipers and the common things that you need to have fixed, right? Yeah, okay, you're going to lose the oil change. Fine, everybody agrees with that. That doesn't mean the sky is falling because there's not an oil change.
Right.
Going forward, it's just going to be different things that need to be addressed. And they've actually seen over the course of the last 3 years that labor related to service is a 3x increase with EVs specifically versus internal combustion engines. I would expect that that's only going to exacerbate over the long term.
That's great. So all kinds of opportunity.
Lots of opportunity.
For dealers, for OEMs, for everybody in the industry. So, well, lastly, let's lean forward. Let's kind of think about, share with some of our folks here in the audience. Let's crystal ball. You've been around not too long. Yeah. You're a young guy. So leaning forward, though, vision, what are some of the things you think are sort of on the horizon, the next big thing from a consumer experience, or just the next big thing in automotive from Jason Stein? What's your prediction?
I think the next big thing is going to be the fact that 3 years from now, we're going to be talking all about electric vehicles. And whether we wanted to admit it or not a few years ago, the public's not really going to accept it. No, the train has left the station. It has left the station. It's rolling fast because all that vehicle development is well underway. And you know as well as I do that most car companies look 5 years down the road or are working on projects 5 to 7 years down the road. So the next iteration of that is already coming. I think what's going to change is the cost of batteries, which will relate to the cost of the vehicle. It goes back to my earlier point. Affordability is going to be key. Driving the price down, irrespective of rebates, whatever rebates are out there or incentives that are out there, government incentives, the price of the battery will come down, the chemistry will get better, there'll be more affordability. Whether you like EVs or not, it kind of is not gonna matter because they're all gonna be there. I have a 15-year-old gas-powered 911 that will become like the Mad Max vehicle. It'll be the last vehicle that's on the road, but it's all not going away with the flip of a switch, right? I mean, this is not changing overnight. It is changing for now. We're gonna see that segment shift. 1% a few years ago, now to 5%, now 6% in terms of EV ownership. You'll see it north of 10 within a few years. You'll see it get to 20%. But again, it's a gradual shift, what's going to occur.
What our data has shown us, it's the traditional OEMs, though, that are bringing those EVs to market, and they are using the traditional dealer distribution models. So again, all kinds of opportunity for dealers, lots of opportunity. Yes. So it doesn't, as you said, it's kind of overhyped a bit, ICE versus EV, and yes, it's a huge shift, but it's not the shift that changes the model.
It's a 90s hip hop song, don't believe the hype.
I love it. So any last words of wisdom for our NADA audience?
It's just great to see everybody back here. It really is. And I think those who wrote off trade shows in this work from home culture that we've been in for the last 2 years, there were a lot of proclamations about the death of in-person things. I think this proves that people still like people. Yes, amazingly. Yes. Even post-COVID, they still want to get together with people. Maybe not all the time, and they might not rush back to the offices, but indeed, people still like to get together, network, and it's hard to meet new people over Zoom.
It is.
And this is the part that has existed over the course of the last few days here.
Well, that's awesome. So we're so excited to have Jason Stein here with us. Check him out again on Cars and Culture on Sirius XM. Again, thank you. So excited to have you here with us.
Thanks, Barb.
Thanks, Jason.
Really appreciate it.